Good evening and welcome to the Glendale Candidate Forum. I'm Todd Hunt, President of the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council. Tonight's forum features the candidates for the 43rd California State Assembly District. Featured tonight are Assemblyman Mike Gatto and Glendale School Board member Greg Krikorian. As we begin this evening of democracy in action, please rise to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Before we proceed, we would like to thank the City of Glendale for providing the voters of our communities the opportunity to view a forum both in person tonight and live on TV, and this will also be rebroadcast on Glendale TV, Charter Channel 6, and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. It also streams online at www.glendale.tv. We're particularly grateful for the assistance of Public Information Officer Sergeant Tom Lorenz and the outstanding technical crew of Glendale TV with Brian Halloran. We also want to thank tonight's director, Sabrina Thomas, and our graphic designer, Henry Sabarian. They make all of us look good. The Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council is pleased and privileged to co-sponsor tonight's forum with the League of Women Voters of Glendale and Burbank. And it is now my honor to introduce to you their president, Joan Hardy.
Thank you. Glad to see such a big crowd here tonight. The League of Women Voters was established in 1920 after winning the right to vote for women. The League is one of the nation's most respected community-based organizations. In addition to our work in the elections area, League volunteers work on issues of local importance from education to healthcare, land use, and housing. Holding candidate forums is something the League has done since its inception in 1920. We do not support or oppose any candidates for office or political parties. We want everyone to vote, so our elected leaders represent our entire community. We are a voice for all, working to connect people directly with government. We provide and work from facts, we educate, and we advocate for change. The questions you will be hearing tonight are questions from the public and are not scripted beforehand by party officials or advocates for a particular candidate. The format also calls for adherence to the terms of civil discourse by both candidates and the public. The hallmark of democracy is the willingness of all our members of our community to treat each other with courtesy and respect, not just the people we agree with. It is in that spirit that we are here this evening to engage in a vital part of our democratic process, a civilized discussion of the important issues that confronts our nation and our communities. The election will be the first time that the new maps drawn by the California Citizens Redistricting Commission will be used. The new Assembly map has new boundaries. The Assembly District 43 will be bound on the east by the Los Angeles County foothill communities of La Crescenta, La Cañada, crosses the Verdugo Hills west into Burbank, and includes Glendale, bound on the west to include all of Griffith Park. The Bob Hope Airport is within the Assembly District 43. If you have last-minute questions about voting, what your ballot will look like, where your polling place is, how to return an absentee ballot, check the League's website, smartvoter.org. Everything you need to know will be there. And if you're still looking for nonpartisan, objective information on the ballot measures, visit the LWVC Ed Fund website, cavotes.org. for in-depth information about the ballot measures and assistance in tracking financial contributions. We are a volunteer organization, and membership is open to both men and women. And now our moderator, Rita Zvern. Rita is a league member and an active member in the community. We are so lucky and thankful for her volunteering her time, as well as her terrific ability as a moderator.
Good evening. I'm Rita Zwern, and I will be the moderator for this evening's forum. This evening's forum will be televised live and will be repeated at subsequent times on Charter Cable Channel 6, AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and streaming online at www.glendale.tv. No reproduction or rebroadcast of this forum may be made without the written permission of the League of Women Voters, Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council, and the City of Glendale. The audience here tonight has been invited to submit written questions for the candidates. Please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question, and one of the monitors will provide you with a card and pencil. Questions will be collected only during the opening statements and the first 2 rounds of questions. We would like to request that the audience turn off all cell phones and pagers, and that they refrain from applauding or otherwise disrupting the forum. If a candidate's supporters cause disruptions during another candidate's remarks, the second candidate will be given additional time to compensate for the interruption. Each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes for an opening statement. Following this, I will ask questions submitted by the audience and the public. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. We will alternate the order of which candidate goes first, and we will proceed in alphabetical order. Following the question period, the candidates will be given 3 minutes each for a closing statement. Our timekeepers will alert candidates to the time remaining with signs of 1 minute and 30 seconds and a stop sign when they're out of time. Attacks of a personal nature, including private matters having no bearing on a candidate's public persona or ability to perform the duties of the office in a competent, ethical manner, will not be tolerated. If a candidate makes a personal attack during his remarks, the time required for me to interrupt the candidate and remind him of the rule will be taken from his own speaking time. I would like to begin by introducing the candidates in alphabetical order for the 43rd California Assembly District. Assemblyman Mike Gatto and Glendale School Board member Greg Krikorian. We will now begin with opening statements. Mr. Gatto, your opening statement, please.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council for putting this forum together. It has been my pleasure working with the League on reform measures to better our state, and it has been my pleasure working with the Glendale Homeowners groups, all of the Glendale Homeowners groups, on various local issues. Thank you to the City of Glendale for allowing us to use your beautiful council chambers, and thanks to all of you who are taking the time to inform yourself and to learn about us, instead of watching the World Series, although it's just the Giants. And what the heck, thank you to my opponent for participating here tonight. 2 years ago, in a series of 4 elections in 7 months, the voters of this community elected me to represent them in the California State Legislature. I won an open primary, meaning Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and everyone else could vote in it. And I had strong support from people all around Southern California and from every group in this vast district. Then and now, I talk to a lot of voters, my neighbors and stakeholders in our wonderful communities. The reason I ran is the same thing that I hear from so many people that I talk to. We want common sense, no-nonsense solutions in Sacramento, a new way of thinking. And during the past 2 years, I have worked tirelessly to reform the place. NBC Los Angeles said, few people in Sacramento care much about broader reform of California's governing process. Mike Gatto is an exception. He is virtually alone in offering proposals that are big enough to address the state's big structural problems. Some of the major reforms that I've worked on include passing legislation to implement a rainy day fund. That was ACA 4, so that our state would put away money when times are good so that we don't need to raise taxes or cut services when times are bad. Initiative reform, ACA 6, making sure that if a special interest group proposes a spending program with ballot box budgeting, that they first have to identify how they're going to pay for it. And campaign finance reform. We need greater transparency in government, and that means knowing who is funding the multi-million-dollar campaigns and fighting to overturn the Citizens United decision, which allows for unlimited corporate funds into federal campaigns. Our work is far from over, but the choice here is clear. I am someone with ideas who cares about reforming California so that our future is at least as bright as our past. Every bill that I've gotten signed into law, and there were 10 of them just this year, has passed with bipartisan support and bipartisan votes. Think of that. That is a rarity and quite an accomplishment to build that kind of consensus in the modern political world. I've also kept promises, not only on the rainy day fund, but also to get harmful toxins out of baby bottles, something the big chemical lobby had fought for generations, but we successfully did this year with AB 1319. I ask for your support so that we continue our great quest for reform and our journey to fix this wonderful state that we call California.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. I, too, like to thank the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity for finally having a forum, and also the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council. A couple years ago, actually in the late 90s, I was a member of the Northwest Homeowners Association for about 5 years until I got elected to the Glendale Board of Education. Also, I'd like to thank Assemblymember Gatto for visiting us here in Glendale. At this time, I look back to my life. 22 years ago, my wife and I left Detroit. I was born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut. But we left Detroit in 1989, and we chose Glendale to start a family. My father and I started a business called Business Life Magazine, a small family-owned business. Throughout that time, my wife and I have been active in many community organizations, Kiwanis of Glendale, Boy Scouts of America, Jewel City Little League, which I served as president for 6 years, also AYSO, Salvation Army, Burbank YMCA, the list goes on of my community service that's built upon Glendale, Burbank, the foothills, La Crescenta, where we've given our life. I think the most exciting thing was the twins that we had, that were born here in Burbank at St. Joe's Hospital. And my other 3 kids were all born there. So we have 5 children, obviously, involved in the Glendale schools. I have 3 in college, 1 at Cal Poly, 1 at Azusa Pacific, and 1 at Glendale Community College. My daughter's at Hoover High School, my son Heigi's at Balboa Elementary School. So our lives have been dedicated to our community. Also, during that time, in 2001, I ran for Board of Education to serve our public schools. During that time, our board has been sufficiently be able to handle the crisis and economic crisis in our state. We haven't laid off any teachers. We maintain class size, even due to cuts that Mike Gatto did to our public schools in the past 2 years, which actually equates to about $700 million cuts that forced a lot of schools to close, and actually schools throughout the state to have their own problems. I stand before you as an average citizen, not as a lawyer or a politician. I stand before you as one of you. Our state is in a crisis. We can't continue this course. Many people are losing jobs. I'm not here to pass bills or laws. I'm here to bring jobs, bring back common sense, not special interest groups that are bought and sold. I'm here to represent you. You know, I look back a couple years ago and talking to my friends, no one knew who our state assembly member was. They encouraged me to run because no one knew who he was. And I said, you know what? You're right. I don't trust him. After serving our public schools, I believe in our public schools, and I believe in the fabric of our country, what our country is built upon, for the Constitution and doing what's right for the people, all people. And I've done that and exhibited that in the public schools by serving all students, no matter if they're Democrat, Republican, Green Party, because I serve all kids. Thank you, and I count on your support on November 6th.
Thank you. Please refrain from applauding in the audience. We'll now begin the question period. The first question will be directed first to Mr. Gatto. Mr. Gatto, currently California has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. what are the 3 most important things that could be done to create jobs and put people back to work? Your 2-minute response, please.
Sure. Well, as someone who's worked every day of my life since turning 16, jobs are very important to me. This past year, I took a lot of steps, concrete steps, to help bring jobs back to California. I authored AB 49 and AB 1549, and these are very important bills that would enable businesses who want to create jobs and who want to locate in California to do so without harmful red tape. AB 49 and AB 1549 sought several things. First, when you're trying to locate a multi-permit project in this state, it can be a real pain. You often need to get permits from the state, county, or city. If you look at a fast food restaurant, a simple fast food restaurant, for example, you need an emissions permit from the state, a grease trap permit from the county, you need a driveway permit from the city. And of the 20 permits that you often need to get, you often can't get number 17 until number 16 is signed off on. And if one bureaucrat is being a pain or goes on leave or is unresponsive, it's often tough luck. So my bill would have created a single point of contact who could step in and sign for that permit to keep things moving. The estimates were that it would have sped up locating businesses in California, which takes about 2 years, to roughly 6 months. Secondly, and as anyone who ever sought a permit knows, often you finish the list of the 5 that they tell you to get, and they tell you that you need another 5. So my bill would have mandated a conclusive list at the outset, and this, I think, would have created a lot of new jobs in California. I also authored AB 55, which reauthorized the existence of the entities that handle the payroll, benefits, and insurance of employees on movie and TV productions. These are huge employers in our community. I co-authored the tax incentive for the entertainment industry. This is AB 2026, to keep those good jobs in California. I wrote the bills to create a huge new green industry and thousands of green jobs in California. This was AB 1900 and 2196 to help the biofuel industry. I co-authored AB 1500 and 1501, which closes the loopholes for companies in California that outsource jobs. If we want to get serious about creating jobs in this state, we need to make sure that the companies that send them out of our state are penalized and penalized in a meaningful way.
I have a question for information. The Assembly member has actual answers to the sheets here, to the questions. He's reading verbatim from a specific answer. It says unemployment, and he's reading right from a sheet. And, we don't have sheets in front of us. I came with a pad of paper, and he has specific notes answering that. It's identifying that question. He's reading verbatim.
Todd, do you want to address that? Todd, do you want to address that?
It's scripted.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're certainly all shocked that there was a question on jobs. I've never seen such pettiness.
So for clarification, the questions were not submitted to the candidates beforehand. There was no determination as to whether they could bring their own notes or not in our invitation.
Fair enough.
Mr. Krikorian,
Okay, thank you.
Your 2-minute response to the same question, please.
Well, first of all, we're at the highest unemployment rate ever. Many of my friends are out of their jobs. People are losing their businesses and leaving the state. Mike Gatto has passed over 16 laws that's driven businesses out of this state. A lot of unfunded mandates, a lot of mandates without any resources to do these things. As a small business owner, I know firsthand what it's like to pay employees. For 22 years, my father and I have been publishing a business, making payroll, even to a point to where we even skip our own payrolls to pay staff, to make things happen. Firsthand, I've been involved in many organizations here locally, from VICA, our chambers of commerce, helping the development and the growth of our small businesses. Small businesses are the backbone to our country. And many times what happens is we have lawyers who are state assembly members who are out of touch with our businesses, and they forget what our businesses really need. We don't need more taxes. We don't need more laws. We need jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs. And my exact plan is to develop plans. When I was going through the entertainment industry, which is a very integral part of our community, out of our entertainment industry, 23 TV dramas are being filmed this year. Only 2 in California. The rest have left our state because of lack of incentives, real incentives, and support for them. I'm committed to bring jobs back and help the unemployment. The unemployment rate, what's happening is many families are leaving this state. They're giving up. I am committed to bring them back. As your next state assembly member, I will lead California's comeback and help the families find jobs And what's most disheartening is our kids in college have no hope. We got to bring hope back to them. And that's what I'm going to do, is bring hope back to them and bring realistic support for our students in college and community colleges, that there's jobs waiting for them. I'm a proven leader, and I'm committed to do responsible and sensible laws that's funding businesses to grow, not driving them out of the state. We're ranked last in funding in driving our state businesses out of the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next question will be directed to Mr. Krikorian.
Okay.
And speaking of community colleges, given that the community college system is increasingly becoming a bridge for high school graduates to a four-year college and a low-cost resource for the unemployed seeking new career training, what steps would you propose to strengthen and adequately fund this critical component of our education system? Your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. Very important question. Our community colleges are a gateway to our students to leverage and bridge into UC systems and even for careers. Being on the Glendale Board of Education, we have a great working relationship with Glendale Community College. For the past 12 years, we have joint partnership meetings with them, working with our high schools, working with the community colleges to help them develop programs. Do you know what we're doing in our Glendale Community College? We actually develop programs in Glendale High School that are bridge programs in digital arts, programs to help them for a future workforce. We have to look at the basics, and that's the key thing here. My own daughter and son are in Glendale Community College. They experienced lines. My daughter had to sit in classrooms to hope that the class would be free for a spot for her. Unfortunately, during this last 2 years, tuition's been raised twice underneath Mike Gatto's leadership to our students. 2 times it's gone up. That's a fact. I'm committed to help our children. That's our future workforce in our state, and that's what we have to invest in. I'm committed to invest in our public schools, and it doesn't start by taxing. What I plan on doing is refocusing Sacramento and addressing the waste in Sacramento. For the past 12 years, we've been cutting in our public schools nonstop till we're cutting to the bone. I'm committed to take that next step to protect our children and our families, and most importantly, our teachers. Our professors at the community college level need sustainable measures to keep them employed, so they're not worried about losing their job. And finally, these students that graduate out of our community colleges are great workers, but we need to give them hope. And what I'm planning on doing is bring them hope. And when elected on November 6th as your next state assembly member, I will bring them that hope.
Thank you. Mr. Gatto, your 2-minute response, please.
I'm glad to see that Mr. Krikorian has adopted President Obama's 2008 slogan. You know, I think our kids need more than hope, and I think the specific question was, what can we do to improve our community college system? And I think I've read a lot about these issues, and I've lived them myself. You know, I attended Los Angeles Community College, and you know, one of the ideas that I have, and the legislation that I plan on introducing next year, is something that is being tried in the Midwest, and I think it's been tried with a lot of success. And that is asking every community college in the state to pair with a local industry, to pair with an industry where there's a good future, where there is hope, where there is a strong job market. I mean, it doesn't take too much of a stretch to figure that a community college like Glendale Community College could pair with the entertainment industry, which is a very, very strong local industry, and really focus its curriculum and the courses that it offers on helping students get the meaningful training, and also helping people who are using the community college system to re-educate themselves if they've lost their job, to help our community colleges do that, to help them offer that training to both students and people who are out of a job and trying to get a job again. My tenure in Sacramento has been focused also on solving the state's big problems. Community colleges, really, it comes down to funding. I mean, the reason why fees have come up so much recently is because because there's such a budget crisis in Sacramento. If you all remember those commercials that some people have seen where the person is smoking through the hole in their neck, that is, very few people actually know that those commercials are funded by the California Constitution. A special interest put that on the ballot, and it is written in the rules of the state that we have to put a certain amount of money to tobacco education every year when we're cutting higher education. And I've tried to implement those reforms to stop that type of ballot box budgeting so that our schools have the necessary funding. And I've also co-authored AB 1500 and 1501, which are the Middle Class Scholarship Fund, which would provide an additional $146 million to our community college system.
Thank you. The next question will go to Mr. Gatto. The State Employee Retirement Fund has been plagued for many years by inadequate funding and benefit rules that encourage abuse. What steps would you propose to ensure the solvency of the fund in the short and long term? Your 2-minute response, please.
Well, I think it starts with having a reasonable rate of return built in the system. If you look at the current system, I believe CalPERS has a 7.75% rate of return that they have written in their expectations. And folks, if you can find a 7.75% rate of return anywhere out there, let me know, because I'd like to get it. So I think those type of investment returns are unreasonable, and I think during these times, it's only going to set the system up for a lot more heartache in the future if they're expecting to earn almost 8% a year and they don't quite get there. Your question also asked about the pension system and stopping some of the more, I think, egregious abuses. On this issue, I've not only talked the talk, I've also walked the walk. A few years ago, it came out that as part of the Bell scandal, that the police chief here in Glendale, who had been paid a pretty modest salary as police chiefs go, that he had been transferred to the city of Bell, and because of the scandal over there, or whatever cronyism, whatever you want to call it, they had raised his salary and benefits up to nearly $500,000 a year. And then it came out that it's actually not the city who offers those Cadillac pensions who has to pay for those retirement. It's the city that employed that person during most of that person's career. So Glendale was on the hook for that police chief's pension. We're talking millions and millions of dollars a year, and I authored the bill to fix that. It's really simple. The folks and the taxpayers in well-run cities, and I think most of the cities, all the cities in my district are well-run, the taxpayers in those cities should not have to pay the pension debts that are racked up by not so well-run or corrupt cities. And I also think that just taking away that takes away one of the incentives for these next cities to go in and offer these huge pensions.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. Pension reform is crucial. What's happening now is there's guarantees of actually 8.5% return. And for the average citizen who isn't a state employee, 8.5% return is great. We'd all want that. So we have to be realistic when we're developing laws. We in the Glendale Unified School District actually incorporated a rainy day fund for our employees for retirement to protect them. Unfortunately, legislation coming down to us is telling us to be prepared to cut and raise more. When we have to do that, that's going to cut deep to our kids and increase class sizes. Laws and initiatives that Mike Gatto's passed has been increasing class sizes many times in our schools and causing us to cut classes. That's why I'm committed to look at this in realistic terms. The governor's pension reform plan was good, but didn't go far enough. The double dipping and the spiking of salaries, and even most recently this summer, Mike Gatto and the legislators gave their staffs a 4.6% raise to their staffs during the summer. Hey, you know what? They may be retiring and adding that to their salaries and pensions. Everyone got, the state legislator staffs got salary bumps, and it comes back to the facts of life. I'm not beholden to anyone but you. I'm here to represent the citizens, not special interest groups, not unions, not big business. I'm here to represent your voices. When he says his local voices, it's not his local voices. I live in this community. I've been part of this community for 22 years, and I'm committed to serve the 43rd, which includes Los Feliz, Atwater Village, where my sister owns a business, in Burbank, Glendale, and the foothills. We have to save our country. We need more leaders who come from us as average citizens, not more corporate lawyers running our state. I'm committed to bring back business and help the pension reform realistically come back so people with Social Security have a true retirement too. I'm going to look at protecting all sides.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next question will be directed to Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you.
The top 3 sources of the state budget revenue are personal income tax, sales and use tax, and corporate taxes, in that order. If you were elected and could start from scratch, how would you structure revenue sources that are fair and flexible and that would adequately fund state and local government services through good times and bad? Your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. First of all, we're taxed enough. We have the highest tax in the nation. Look at our gasoline prices. Look what's going on to our kids and our families, our businesses. We are the highest tax state in the nation. When elected, I'm going to be looking at ways to reduce taxes, cutting costs. I'm going to do performance-based measures throughout our whole state, look at ways how we can reduce spending. I'm going up to Sacramento, when elected on November 6th, to look for cuts. I'm not beholden to any special interest groups, which have given me over $850,000 to dictate my voice. My voice is your voice. I'm first looking at ways to do, when I say performance-based programs, we're going to set everyone, have a one-year program to see if these services are working. If they're not working, we have to cut and move on. There's too many families that need help. And for us to put more taxes on the back of our families right now, and businesses are leaving this state, it's not the right direction to go. So what I plan is looking for new revenue streams, one by creating more film industry to come back. As other states were canvassing our businesses to leave, while Mr. Gatto was passing laws to push them out, Greg Krikorian is going to come back and bring business back to our state. I'm committed to do that. That's the first thing. Second thing is investing in public education properly. Our state has the worst funding for public education. We rank last. It's nothing to be proud of. But I'll tell you this from the bottom of my heart. You could trust me because what I've proved in the last 12 years serving our children in public schools, I don't want to make this a career. I want to save our state. I want to save the 43rd District from special interest groups and big business. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gatto, your 2-minute response, please.
Well, my folks always told me that you should never trust someone who says, trust me. But, you know, I've been called a lawyer like it's a bad thing, and I don't apologize to anybody for seeking higher education and getting a Juris Doctorate. I think there's a number of people in the audience and people watching who want their sons and daughters to get educated, become doctors and lawyers. I will say that my practice, just to get the record straight, was helping small businesses and medium-sized businesses with their problems that they had with California government. And it was a wonderful training for the position that I have now. I saw what they went through, and I don't apologize to anybody for that. I also want to address quickly this issue of being beholden. You know, Greg, I won't sit here and get lectured on campaign finance reform from a guy who's under investigation from the Fair Political Practices Commission. It's a fact that you are. It's your third investigation. That's a fact, and every time that you say these things about me, you know, I just want the record to be straight. The specific question was about taxes, and anybody can come up here and say that taxes are bad. Taxes are bad. Everybody hates taxes. But the question was, what can we do to fix our broken tax system? Our tax system in California is way too volatile. We depend way too heavily on things like capital gains taxes, which, you know, it shouldn't have been a shock to anybody in the legislature who was serving there in 2007, 2008. I wasn't. That when you stop selling homes at a profit and you stop selling stocks at a profit, when a system that is so heavily dependent on capital gains, there's going to be an instant hole in the budget that we're still recovering from. So the specific question was, what would we do if we had carte blanche in the state to revamp our tax system? Well, that's what I would do. I would make sure that we are less dependent on revenue streams. I would spread out our tax code so that people feel that's a little more fair. It's more fee-based, so people feel like they have an option, and less dependent on the income tax. Because you know what? You can choose whether you want to pay a fee, but you can't choose whether you're going to make income. So I think we need to be a lot less dependent on the income tax, and I introduced legislation this year that would have started the discussion on that very subject.
Thank you. The next question will be directed to Mr. Gatto. What is your stance on gay marriage and on Proposition 8, which is currently up for review by the Supreme Court? Your 2-minute response, please. Well,
that's a wonderfully direct question, and I'll give you a wonderfully direct answer. I support gay marriage 100%. I think that any time that two people who are not related wish to unite, then that is for them to decide. It's not for the government to decide. I don't think the government has any business getting inside the bedrooms of loving couples, and you know, I unequivocally support the right for people in the LGBT community to marry. As for Proposition 8, you know, it would be my preference if it had never passed, but I do hope that the court strikes it down, because I think there's a lot of loving couples out there who wish to get married.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, your 2-minute response, please.
Well, again, the measures is right in the court system now. The voters voted yes on 8, and it's addressing the court. It's not in front of the legislator. It's not there. One of the most important things right now is focusing on our economy and focusing on jobs. But I want to say something here and set the record straight clear. I'm a family man. I believe in my family, and I have those values. But at the same time, I believe that government shouldn't be involved in our lives. Individuals can make their own choices what they believe in. It's their choice. It's not my choice to dictate to them how they should be living their lives. But what's more important right now, I think that's the least of our worries in this state. What a bigger worry in our state is bringing back jobs. Because the fact of the matter is that's the number one concern we need to do. I'm concerned. I also believe, and I said it earlier, and I'll re-say it again, is that government should stay out of our individual lives. We don't need to be dictated to make decisions on what each person wants to do and who they want to be with. But going back to the main issue why we're here and why I'm running is what's happening. If we don't make change, that's going to be the least of our worries. School districts are going to be closing. 190 school districts in our state are in jeopardy. Businesses by droves are leaving. Foreclosures are out of control. Families can't sustain another 2 years of this dysfunctional leadership. We need change. We need it now, and we need leaders who are going to lead California's comeback. And that's what I'm committed to do. Fair, responsible leadership, but with an open mind to protect all citizens, because each citizen has a right to do and what they believe in, and whoever they want to be with. That's their choice, not my choice to dictate to them. And as I pledge with you today, not only as a father of 5 children, I don't know what's going to happen to my children, what decisions they're going to make in life, but it's their call, not mine to dictate to them. And I'm pleased and honored to make that statement. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question goes to you, and once again, you've anticipated it. What will be the most pressing changes you will bring to the 43rd District if elected? Mr. Krikorian, your 2-minute response, please.
First change is bringing the district back to us, to the residents of the 43rd, who live here, who are part of our community, who run and operate small businesses. I'm committed to you. One of our biggest priorities is helping our families get back on track, have hope for jobs, and bring real jobs back by looking at the industry. Presently, our manufacturing businesses are falling and closing their doors. We need to go back to the basics of bringing back businesses. One of the focus I have, first focus, is children priority 1, helping our public education source. Because what happens is, if our future workforce depletes, companies like Nestle's, Disney, and Warner Brothers are going to leave. We need to re-strengthen our workforce. And that goes by properly funding public education. You know, I grew up in Connecticut, and in Connecticut, they give about $11,000 per student. Michigan was 10. California, in my district, Glendale Unified, it's only 4,900. It was 6,000, 5,000 a couple years ago, but we keep getting cut. So what I promise to do is bring back and reinvest in our public schools, protect our teachers, protect our jobs, and protect our families, not be beholden to special interest groups. You could just easily Google it and follow the money and find where it goes and who speaks for you. You could check where you want to say about FPPC reporting. I've raised $160,000 to $1.2 million. That says it there. Has the time come in our country, we need $1.2 million to force it down our throats. I stand as a father of 5 running a small business as an average citizen, just getting by. I don't need to say I have that. We have a unique opportunity to make change now. And that's what I'm committed to do, to make that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gatto, your 2-minute response, please.
So I think, if I remember the question correctly, it was that the question was, what would the next 2 years bring?
What will the most pressing changes you will bring to the 43rd District if elected?
So I have, as I mentioned in my opening statement, the whole reason why I ran for office was to reform our state's system of governance. When I was a private citizen and I worked in the private sector for 7-8 years, I would wake up in the morning and I would read the newspaper, and I found myself shaking my fist at the newspaper in anger a number of times. And I kept saying to myself, I think I can do better than this. I think I can do better than this. And at some point, I told myself, well, you know what? If you really do think you can do better, then you need to challenge yourself. You need to give up your job, and you need to run for office, and you need to see what you can do to better our state. And I focused the last 2 years single-handedly on reform. I'm the only legislator out of all 120 who has never taken a sponsored piece of legislation. So I hear all this talk about special interests, And with all due respect, it's a bit of a little bit of a whopper. I have never taken a bill from a special interest. I have never taken a sponsored bill. All of my bills tend to be the, dare I say, wonkish, dare I say, a little bit, they're not necessarily the sexy ones that garner the headlines, but they're important reforms. Things like the rainy day fund. It is absolutely critical that our state puts away money when times are good so that we have money when times are bad. This is a practice that everybody follows. All of us live our lives by this. All of us save for retirement. If I pointed in the room and I said there's somebody out there who doesn't save for retirement, you would say that's an irresponsible person. Well, that's how our state government has acted. And I authored the bill to bring the rainy day fund to California, the enhanced rainy day fund. I've also been focusing on ballot box budgeting reform. When a special interest group can put something on the ballot and they can take tax dollars, our tax dollars, folks, our tax dollars, and they can dedicate them to a pet project forever. And forever is a really long time. There's something wrong with the system. So those are the things that I've been focusing on. You can expect more of that in the next 2 years. I'm a reformer, and that's why I ran for office.
Thank you. And the next question will be directed to Mr. Gatto. First, what would you do? What would you support to help the California K-12 public school system regain its reputation for graduating well-prepared students? Your 2-minute response, please.
Well, I already mentioned my idea for the community colleges of partnering them with industries, and this question was on K through 12. And I co-authored several bills this year, or authored several bills this year that I think would improve our education system. When it comes down to it, though, our education system is about funding. We need adequate funding, and that much is clear. I've heard a lot of people, including people on this dais, complain about the problem, but I've heard very, very few solutions out there. And I started talking about one in one of my previous answers, and I'm happy that another question came up so I can continue the conversation. Like all of the problems in our state, just about everything. You look at law enforcement, you look at paving the roads, you look at all of the issues, all the core functions of government. They're all suffering because of lack of funds. They're all suffering because California's revenues look like a seismograph. We have very, very strong revenue when times are good, and we have nothing when times are bad. It's because our tax system is very choppy. It's because prior legislators spent like drunken sailors. When money came through the door, temporary money from the dot-com boom or money from the housing boom, they spent it on permanent programs. And then we had special interest groups using their influence to pass things on the ballot on permanent programs. And so now all of these programs are in place, and it shouldn't be a shock to anybody that they are eating from the education thing. From the education budget. I mentioned my ACA 10. This is the Constitution Protection Act. This is something, you look at the federal Constitution, it's been amended 27 times in the history of our country. California's Constitution has been amended 521 times, almost always by special interest groups. That comes down to about 4 every year since we've had the ability to do it. And again, I remind everybody about those commercials where the person is smoking through the hole in their neck. That is funded by taxpayer funds. Your taxpayer funds, my taxpayer funds. We are forced, the legislature doesn't have any option to spend those funds on tobacco education while K-12 education suffers. We need to change that.
Thank you. And Mr. Krikorian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. For the past 12 years, as a Board of Education member, also as a delegate for the California School Boards Association, we've been flying to Sacramento, attending different meetings, advocating for adequacy of funding. For the past 12 years, we've been cutting to the bone in our classrooms. It's sad when you see what's going on. The unfunded regulations passed down by Sacramento onto us without funding is impacting our schools. You get new laws, they come down, they don't see what's happening in our front lines. But talking about what I will do and what I have done, I've proven myself with our board, our 5 members. We work together as a team. We've been able to withstand this economic crisis for 12 years. We're one of the few districts that have reserves. Also underneath my leadership, I brought in Film LA to Glendale Unified School District. This has generated $100,000 a year for our schools, coming up with creative revenue streams, not more taxes. This revenue stream was innovated by our board. The other thing I incorporated was the Glendale Education Foundation, which now we're going our 7th year, which raised close to $1 million to our schools. I developed piggyback purchasing, where other school districts joined with us to buy products so we could save money and do lower costs on our purchasing. Our most crucial goal is K-12. We got to plant the seed and invest in families to say that we're committed to them. And one thing I will do as your next state assembly member was commit to our children and our teachers. All the teachers out there and all the families out there If you want to protect your children's public education, you vote for me. I also want to touch on another important thing and when I want to reflect on it, because I got 30 seconds, we want to talk about special interest groups again and dodging it and saying, I committed. I did not do this. But over $80,000 of special interest group money came in from Indian gaming casinos. But our state assembly member, Mike Gatto, voted to cut church-run bingos out of our churches. Hey, that's not a special interest connection to me. That's a focus there that we need to look at.
Thank you, Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you.
The next question will be directed to Mr. Krikorian. Crossing party lines seems to be a forgotten practice these days. How would you get along with your colleagues in order to pass legislation in Sacramento? Your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. Our whole platform is working that way. For the past 12 years, I've served families of all different backgrounds. In our public schools, I worked with students and families, be it the Democrat, Green Party, Republican, Libertarian. What's important here is we have to work together. We don't have time to state party lines. You know, our assembly member's track record is almost 99% voting party line. Obviously, it was quoted in the paper why he got the appropriations chair, because he followed party line. Now's the time we need change. Democrats, Republicans, decline the states. If you want change, vote for me. If you want someone who's going to stand up for both sides, vote for me. I'm going to look at ways and help to move our state forward, not backwards. We are in a serious situation. The whole world is looking at what's going on here. But the little Glendale and Burbank and La Crescenta and our foothills and Los Feliz and Atwater Village and Hollywood and our surrounding areas and all the areas wherever we may live, we have to get back to the basics. And that's what's important, working together. Working together to achieve a goal for the greater good for all people. When you vote on November 6th, you vote your conscience. And no matter what party you're from, you could believe in me, because I will stand up for you and put the issues first, not my special interest first, what I'm beholden to. And who I'm beholden to is all the residents of the 43rd, so we could save our state. As we look at our state right now, we're $16 billion in debt and growing. It's not going to get better staying the same course. We need change. And I've committed my life right now and my time from my family to represent you, the voices of the 43rd that are unheard. That's why I live here, and I'm committed to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gatto, your 2-minute response, please.
Well, I believe the question was on bipartisanship, which is very important. You know, I got elected in the middle of a term. I was a new guy, and nobody knew who I was. My first day on the job, everybody thought I was a page boy. And, you know, I had to make friends fast. And I talked to a lot of the old-timers who were in Sacramento when it functioned, and they all told me that Sacramento just isn't as genteel as it used to be. So I think the first thing that we need to do to ensure bipartisanship is simply to realize that the other side is human too. That they were elected to represent a constituency just like everybody else, and that they are patriotic just like us. You know, I've walked the walk on collaboration. My Republican colleague, Jeff Gorell, from a district just north of here, and I had authored bills together. We had collaborated, and that type of collaboration is sadly rare in Sacramento today. When he got called to active duty in Afghanistan, he asked me to manage one of his bill package for him. And I shepherded the bill through the entire process, even though it was a Republican bill, even though it wasn't my idea, even though it wasn't my issue. And I thought that was the least I could do for him, truth be told. I was also part of a bipartisan group of legislators who worked to reform the tax code this year. I've been endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Business. I'm the only sitting Democratic legislator that they've endorsed. I want to address something that Mr. Krikorian said, because he's repeated this several times, and I have some statistics here that I think will, and I don't use this term lightly. I don't use the term lying lightly, but there were 1,811 bills last year. 999 were unanimous. These were things like naming a freeway for a fallen police officer, or just a great bill that both sides agreed on, and I authored several of those. That means there were 812 non-unanimous bills, ones that were debated where there was a decision made and you know, they weren't something non-substantive. The Democrat who broke party lines the most broke party lines 77 times. Those were 77 courageous votes, 77 times of bucking the trend. The second highest Democrat broke ranks 65 times. 65 times bucking leadership, bucking the trend. The second highest Democrat, folks, was me. And there's going to be an article coming out in the Sacramento Bee that refutes these charges on Monday, and it says, quote, Mike Gatto is one of the most independent legislators.
Thank you, Mr. Gatto. The next question will be directed to Mr. Gatto. What changes would you propose, if any, to fix the initiative and referendum process?
Well, that's a question right up my alley, and I thank you for asking it. You know, I mentioned some of the more wonkish things that I've introduced in my time there, and things that are not sponsored by a special interest group, and actually, in many cases, attack the stranglehold that special interests have on our ballot box. Some of the things I've already mentioned. I mentioned ACA 4, which would be, it would have to be ratified by the voters, of course. And that would establish the Enhanced Rainy Day Fund, and that would change business as usual in Sacramento. The other things I've authored are ACA 6, and this is the concept, folks, that if a special interest group wants to use the ballot to propose a spending program that will be enshrined in our Constitution forever, they first need to identify how they're going to pay for it. How are they going to pay for it? We have had so many things passed by special interests without the money to pay for them. And it's not the only reason why our state is in trouble, but it's one of the many reasons why our state is in trouble. One of the other things I've had is, you know, I care very much about the Constitution. When I practiced law, one of my specialties was the Constitution, and I already mentioned the statistic that should trouble everyone in the room, and that is that our federal Constitution has been amended just 27 times in our history. And it's a really good document. It's a document that has served this country for over 221 years. The state constitution, on the other hand, has been amended 521 times. I just want everybody to think about that. That is a document that has been abused and used by special interests. It's a document that we must preserve, and I introduced ACA 10, which is the Constitution Protection Act. It's a measure that simply says, if you're going to pass something and enshrine it in the Constitution, you need the type of consensus that our founding fathers got. Our founding fathers, you know, the folks from Pennsylvania, had to talk with the folks from Connecticut, the big states and the small states, and everybody in between. I think California would be much better served if urban counties had to talk with rural, and if things that pass with a true vote of people. And that would prevent such divisive things like Proposition 8.
Thank you. Mr. Gregorian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. The initiative process, what's going on is, I think our assembly members missing a point. It's so easy to follow the money and find out exactly what's going on. What's happening here is just a simple little research, and this will make the whole message clear to everybody. 15% of our assembly members' money that he's received has been out of state, the dollars. Almost 90% of these dollars he's raised has been out of district. And you look at the numbers, what's happening here. Who's speaking for you? Not him. Think about it. $1.2 million raised, and now he wants to make laws after he built his bank account, after he built everything. He wants to protect everything. If you really want to follow the rules, then return the money. If you really want to follow the things, return all the contributions you received. Received almost $100,000 from Indian gaming casinos, but a quick flimp closed the church bingos. Hey, you know what? You look at these things, they connect. It's all connected. Teachers union gives you money, you vote for protecting abuse on students. You look at things, look at the facts. The facts are very clear. You could read through the smoke screen. As I said in the very beginning, our state needs change. We can't stay the same course. We can't stay the same way. I will lead our comeback for all of us. What's exciting right now is we have a unique opportunity. My only special interest group is you, the people, our neighbors who live here with me, not in Fair Oaks, California, but here in Glendale, here in our community. Thank you.
If it pleases the moderator, I would like to use the rule you stated at the beginning about personal attacks and address some of those things.
Well, this is a public persona type of issue. I can cover it, thanks. This is a question of public persona, so under the rules it's permitted.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine.
The last question of the evening will be first directed to Mr. Krikorian.
Okay.
If Propositions 30 and/or 38 do not pass, how would you address the budget cuts or revenues needed to balance the current budget? Your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. As a Board of Education member, I've been professing, and my colleagues throughout the whole 43rd District have been professing we need funding. Raising taxes and giving more money to dysfunctional leadership to manage when they haven't shown the ability to manage, how could our taxpayers trust more money giving to them to tell them to manage the money when they haven't shown the ability to manage the money to date? Prop 38, at least the money goes directly to school sites. It doesn't have to get funneled in through different programs, and there's no guarantees it's going to go to schools as of to date. What scares me is, as any parent and any teacher would be scared about, is we have to really restructure our education system and fund it properly. We need to do 2-year budgeting for our teachers in our school districts so they can plan out. You know how hard it is doing mid-year cuts where we have to possibly lay off teachers this March? It's a serious year this year. Many school districts are going to be crippled. One of the things that I have planned on is I want to plan on, and there's 30, 38, and another number that's missing is electing me. Because when I'm elected, I'm going to bring and solve this problem. I want to look and reduce special interest groups by our textbook adoptions. I plan on initiating Kindles and iPads instead of textbooks. School district spends hundreds of millions of dollars buying new textbooks. We go to Kindles, we could put edition after edition there. The concepts and initiatives and the suggestions I have will save money. And one of the plans I do, I'm going to start cutting Sacramento and cutting costs in Sacramento like we've done in Glendale Unified. I plan on making realistic cuts to help our citizens here in this community, not to have people living off our taxpayers. One thing we got to realize, we're the trustees of these tax dollars. It's not my money, it's your money, it's our money. We're leaving our children with the worst debt possible. And when I'm elected on November 6th to represent our people, thank you.
We will now conclude with a 3-minute closing statement.
Do you mind if I answer that question too?
I think you should save that for the closing statement.
No, I didn't answer that question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's okay.
My apologies. Yes, you may have your 2-minute response.
Okay, so the question was, if these propositions do not pass, what are we going to do to improve the education system? I wish Kindles would solve all of our state's budget problems, but I don't think they will. I've mentioned a whole number of things tonight. I've tried to answer the questions directly and candidly with real, genuine ideas about how we need to fix our state's broken budget cycle. I want to address a couple of things that my opponent said in some of his previous answers. Now, as anyone who reads the Glendale News Press knows, Greg Krikorian failed economics, but he apparently also failed civics class too. I do hope that Mr. Krikorian, who's running for office to be in the legislature, knows that the capital of California is in Sacramento, and the legislature is in session roughly 3/4 of the year. So of course I have a place in Sacramento. Everybody does. And you know what? If you have a young family like me, you need to choose between leaving him back here and having him come back and forth with you. And I chose the latter, and I apologize to nobody for doing that. Nobody likes it, but it's a part of life, and until we invent a teleporter, that's how things work. And Greg also knows darn well that I live in the district because I've caught your campaign staff lurking outside my home twice this campaign. And you have my family scared half to death. And I got their license plate number, folks, in case anyone's curious. The other thing is, I'm just not going to sit here and be lectured by someone with a really rough, with no knowledge of economics, no knowledge of civics, and a guy who's under investigation by the state's campaign finance prosecutor. This is a big state. We work for lots of people in the state of California. We work very, very hard for our district, but the issues that we determine affect the whole state. We vote on bills that affect agriculture. I don't have any agriculture in my district. Of course there are people who come talk to me who are from outside the district. That's how this works. This is statewide office. And if you think you're ready for it, then you better be prepared.
Thank you. And again, my apologies for not giving you your 2-minute response.
That's just fine.
We'll now conclude with a 3-minute closing statement from each candidate. Mr. Gatto, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. So, I started out this debate tonight by thanking everybody, and I want to thank everybody again. I also want to thank the voters who have voted for me 4 times now, or 5 times now. And I really do, every day that I wake up in the morning, I think about their trust in me, and it really is an honor, and it is a privilege, and it's something that I take very seriously. The problems that our state faces are vast. They are huge. This is probably the biggest crisis that any of us will see in our lifetimes, and these are meaningful things that people have to worry about every day. And I worry about these things every day. This is a tremendous responsibility on our shoulders. And I think we need somebody in this office who is properly educated, who understands how things work, who is going to work very, very hard on reforming the state of California, who has meaningful ideas. And I ask anybody out there who's watching, anybody who's watching this debate and who's listening to it, to think about the ideas that were put forth today. Think about the questions that were asked. Think about the answers that were given. I have given time and time again specific answers of which things that I would do to solve specific problems. My opponent seems to be focused on some divisive things, and unfortunately, his 11 years in public office have been marked by trying desperately to seek the next higher office, and I think that's a shame. I think the district deserves more than that. I think we need real solutions in this state, and that's what I've offered. The things that I've offered, that's why I'm endorsed by the Daily News newspaper. They have identified me as the best candidate to represent this race. I've been endorsed by Adam Schiff and a lot of other local leaders, including the mayors of both Burbank and Glendale. And those are endorsements that I earned. I earned them because of my reform ideas that I have put forth to fix this great state. Just again, for those of you watching, some of those reforms include the Rainy Day Fund, the Enhanced Rainy Day Fund, a bill that would really greatly improve budgeting in California. If you want to see our budgets smooth and you want to see things get better in the state and you want to see things improve, then we need to fix our spending. We need to fix our budgeting. That is priority number one, and we need to bring jobs back. And if you look at my record, it speaks for itself. I passed several jobs this year that have been tremendous job creators in the state. You look at AB 1616, which would unleash the entrepreneurial spirit for the millions of people who want to break into the food production business. You look at AB 2026, you look at the bill that helps the entertainment industry. You look at ABs 1900 and 2196, which create green jobs in the state. Tremendous, thousands and thousands of green jobs will be created in that state, both in urban and rural centers. These are meaningful bills, meaningful job creation measures for the entire state of California. I ask for all of your help in this wonderful journey. I have had tremendous support from Republicans, independents, declined estates, Democrats, Green Party, Libertarian, and everybody in between. I thank each and every one of you for your support, and it's an honor and privilege to represent you.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. Growing up in Connecticut, and as I approach, actually I'm turning 50 next year, I look at my life, what I've built upon a foundation, and it comes to a point where it's love for the country, and love for our people. And you look at our whole state, what's going on. We have a unique opportunity here to really make change. You do, your votes will count. We already have a supermajority up there that's been sending our state in one direction. Why not send someone up there that has a clean slate, that's not beholden to special interest groups, that's beholden to you? Democrats, Republicans, Green parties, independents, and declined estates, we win this election, this will reverberate throughout the whole state to say that no matter what district you're in, if you're up in Fair Oaks County, if you're in San Diego County, you're in this area here in 43rd, you know who you're representing. You have a chance to send a message. Even if you're voting for Obama, vote for me. If you're voting for Romney, vote for me. And I think it's important now that we send a regular guy up there that has the business experience and owns and operates his own small business, that's run our public schools faithfully for 12 years. And unfortunately, he doesn't realize it because he's not in our district. Our district is great. Glendale and La Crescenta schools are awesome. Look what's going on at CV High School and La Cuneta High School, Burbank High, and Burroughs. We're part of the fabric of this community. My wife's a substitute teacher in Burbank Unified. My dad served the Korean War in early 51, 53, and 54. We have to help our country and our state. And how we do it, vote for me. Vote for the right person who's going to represent you. I couldn't be more excited for this opportunity because we have a choice now. If I didn't get in this race, you know how many seats I passed? To pass Measure S. I stayed behind on the school district to help our schools. People wanted me to run for different offices, and I said I'm going to stay behind and pass Measure S. It was going to help our public schools. I'm committed to here. You could easily see through the smoke screens of the truth. So I ask you as fellow citizens today, read between the lines. My heart and soul is for all people. And if you haven't made a decision yet, vote for me. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this and the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council. I know we're less than 10 days to go. And thank God we finally had a debate and not dodged them all the time, and have the people see the real people who are here today. I'd like to thank you, and God bless. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our candidates forum. Our thanks to the candidates and volunteers for your participation in this evening's forum. The League of Women Voters of Glendale, Burbank, and Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council would also like to thank both our audience in attendance and those of you at home. For those who will be voting by absentee ballot, please be sure to mail in or drop off your ballot so that it's received by November 6th. And remember, on Election Day, it's the votes, not the polls, that count. Thank you and good night.